We previously had a video regarding the City of Peterson's mayoral race. There is also a council race on the ballot for the City of Peterson voters to determine 2 council members. We talked to 2 candidates who are on the ballot for the city council positions, Gail Boyum and Kristina Lynch, Grindland. Remember, the City of Peterson is a mail-in ballot precinct. Official ballots for the November 8th general election were mailed to registered voters in Peterson earlier in October. Campaigned ballots must be received by November 8th. Again, your completed ballot must be received at the Fillmore County Auditor Treasurer's Office in Preston on or before November 8th. If you are concerned that mailing your ballot will not get there in time, the ballot may be delivered in person to the County Auditor Treasurer's Office before or on November 8th until 8 p.m. If you are not a pre-registered voter in Peterson and did not receive a ballot, please call the Fillmore County Auditor's Treasurer's Office for instructions on how to register and to receive a ballot at 507-765-3811 or go to 101 Fillmore Street in Preston.
So I was in the military for 20 years and I traveled all over the world. I started out in Boston, the Boston area. I grew up there, and when I was 19, I joined the Air Force. I traveled to Japan and I met my now husband, and we traveled all over the world together. We had 2 children, one's 16 and one's 12. They both go to school here in Rushford. We're raising them now. They love this community, and I grew up in a big city life. Now I live in small town Peterson. When I first moved here, it's very difficult to get used to everybody knowing who you are, and they didn't know who I was, but walking around with my dog, nobody knows who I am. I'm the girl with the tattoos, outsider. Now they all recognize who I am. People start to talk to me a little bit more. I love the small community now, and I just think it's a really nice little community that is much different than what I grew up in. Like I said, I grew up in a big city type world. Now in a small town community, I think having a voice in a small town is much easier than in a big city. So I think it's time for me to step up and have that voice. In a big city, you're not really heard as much. I think it's time for me to do my part. In the military, I had missions all over the world, and I think here I can have a bigger voice. So that's why I'd like to run and be elected.
Well, I was raised in the Twin Cities, and so you might think that this small town, it doesn't fit me very well. Right. For 10 years, I did live in a small town in Maine, and there I was elected treasurer of the city and worked with the mayor after teaching for 3 years there. The mayor was a woman, and she and I helped speaking in the state legislature so that we could actually become a city. We were really just part of a bigger town, and but we had our own offices and that sort of thing. And so I learned how to speak in public and try to persuade people, and we did eventually become our own town. So that was interesting. I actually became a teacher. I graduated from the University of Minnesota, and I was licensed to teach kindergarten through 8th grade. So I started teaching in Minneapolis, and most of that time I taught in the upper elementary schools. Went to Maine, and I taught 4th grade and 3rd grade, and they were so cute. I loved them. Returned to Minneapolis after living there for 10 years, and got back into teaching, and I was really excited to be able to do that. I have one daughter, and she's not in education, she's in fashion design, so she takes me shopping. When I left Maine, it was a town that was a resort community right on the ocean. I thought I would never find any place more beautiful. But I wanted to come back to my family and friends and Minnesota. And then I met Arnie Boyum, and he introduced me to the Driftless area, and I knew right away this was where I'd really like to spend the rest of my life. Well, I was elected to city council the year after my husband died. And so I've been on for 12 years. This is my 12th year. I would like to continue to serve because I do feel useful. I still feel useful. I like to listen to people, come up with ideas from what they say at council sessions or stopping in at the businesses themselves. I like to figure out ways to help. We don't have an EDA. Peterson doesn't have that. So how can we help our businesses without having an EDA? So one of the goals that I've had is to see how we could bring people to Peterson. And so eventually we formed Friends of Peterson. And so with that and working with the Legion and working with the city, coming up with things that would be of interest to our now transitioning population. When I first moved into Peterson, there were a lot of people that were older living there. But as they've moved, they've been replaced with younger people, a lot of young families. It's so fun to look out my front door and after work see the bike path, which is right in front of my house, filled with little kids running back and forth, biking from house to house, and it's really fun to have young people. So Friends of Peterson look for grants because the town can't afford. We're a small town. We can't afford to do a lot of the things that are good for people. So for instance, one of the things I've learned to do is write grants and find money to cover all or nearly all of the cost of things like the playground that has been around now for quite a while. But that was all covered by grant money, and even the snowflakes we put up for the city during winter, and we leave them into March because it's snowflakes, it's not holidays. The addition to the museum, working with John Erickson because I'm on city council, and the museum is owned by the city. I found out from John that he really needed an addition, but you know, it was going to be very costly. We were able to put that on without costing the city anything. We raised funds and did it with the help of Sentence to Serve, and even learning about those resources. Sentence to Serve is they're in Peterson today as you and I are speaking, and they're helping trim trees, and they're going to work on the museum. They're doing some more landscaping at the museum. Things that we don't have we shouldn't ask the maintenance department in Peterson to do. They have plenty of other things to do. So helping the business community is one of the things that I would really like to do, and I try to do that all the time. How can we bring people to Peterson? Well, we have a big issue, and that is that we need a second well and we need a second water tower. And that seems to be the biggest thing to do now. And of course, that's a huge cost. So I would like to run, again this time, work with the different agencies and see if we can't find funding to cover a lot of the cost of putting in a new well and it's not that we would not use the old well. We just need a backup in case of a disaster or in case our well stops working, and our water tower. Also, we would then have a backup. So that's one of the things that I would like to do, and continue to be useful if I can be.
For the RP Valley Voice, my name is Annika Baca-Meckern.